Number one, the professional execution. The resurrection is easily explained away if Jesus never really died. Like maybe he passed out, woke up in the tomb, called an Uber. But even the atheist scholar Gerd Ludemann says, historically it's indisputable that Jesus was dead. There are multiple historic accounts that confirm Jesus' crucifixion, both inside the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and outside the Bible. You can check out Josephus, Thales, Tacitus, Clement, Ignatius, and others. But nobody ever survived Roman crucifixion.
Okay, I want to stop it right here because I just need to point out that even if we suppose that Jesus really was crucified, let's just start from that point. It doesn't mean that Jesus resurrected. It has literally no connection to it other than the fact that Jesus has to be dead in order for him to resurrect. Just the simple fact that Jesus did die in the past does not mean that Jesus did resurrect. It is a non sequitur. It has no connection to it. But also, it's quite outrageous to say nobody ever survived Roman crucifixion. There have been some reports, like from Josephus, where people have been taken down off the cross and have survived crucifixion. So it's not exactly accurate to say nobody survived Roman crucifixion. But also, I like how in this section, he's like, just look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They all say that Jesus was crucified. Well, yes, of course, Jesus was crucified in those because they were copying from earlier traditions and earlier sayings about Jesus. The first person to even suggest that Jesus was crucified was Paul. But I think that the arguments to suggest that Paul never really meant this crucifixion occurred on earth or even by the Romans are far stronger than reading into Paul that he was talking about those things. But I digress. I said before that I would accept that Jesus physically existed on earth, but that doesn't mean that he resurrected. And so even if Paul was talking about the Romans crucifying Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the worst pieces of evidence that you could use in order to substantiate that he was crucified. The correct reference to mention here is Paul. Paul mentions crucifixion. And even though I think you're wrong, you could definitely make the argument that Paul was talking about the Romans crucifying him. That is the appropriate reference to use here, not the Gospels, which do not represent history at all. He also brings up some early church fathers like Ignatius and Clement and others. All of those people are using the Gospels, the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So really, he's only used one reference here in order to substantiate that Jesus was crucified, and that's Mark. But even Mark isn't an independent source. Mark uses Paul and the other traditions that were surrounding Paul. So this is just shitty right from the get-go. Like, even from a Christian standpoint, this is just shitty evidence.
Before he died, Jesus was scourged to the point we're told his appearance was beyond human recognition. People died from this alone.
The only way that we know this is through the Gospels. The Gospels don't represent history, so I don't think that we can solidly say that Jesus was scourged. Can we make an inference that he probably was? Sure. I'm sure that there were crucifixion victims that were scourged beforehand. But the fact is that the current evidence that we have doesn't show that this happened to Jesus. It requires an inference from information that's not contained within our source documents. So I don't think that you can solidly say this.
He was then forced to carry his cross to a hill where he was crucified to death by professional government executioners who ensured he was dead by thrusting a spear through his side, likely piercing his lungs and heart.
All of that contained in the Gospels. Also, saying that the soldiers were professional executioners is a lot like saying that the trash guys are sanitation engineers. I feel like you're prettying up their actual jobs into something that sounds a lot more professional than it is.
If somehow he survived all this, he was then wrapped in linen, spiced, and buried in a guarded tomb for 3 days without air, water, or medical attention, all of which would have killed him. So point one, Jesus really died.
I don't think that you've actually proven that Jesus really died, but I've already said that I'm going to accept that Jesus lived and he died. So I mean, I'm fine accepting this first point, but at the same time, when you talk about the tomb being guarded and everything like that, that only occurs in one gospel. That's Matthew. The other gospels don't record any guards at the tomb or anything like that. So it just kind of seems like you're cherry picking information from the gospels, but you're primarily using the gospels in order to say all of this. So we really shouldn't take any of this as evidence that Jesus really was crucified. There are better reasons to say that he was crucified than what he has given here. All right, that's point one. What's point two?